Greetings. I'm Sael Graves, Assistant Director of IELTech, the Institute for Language Education in Transcultural Context, at the Graduate Center of the City University of New York. Today, I'm presenting a video abstract of a paper published by the Foreign Language Annals in 2020, authored by Alberta Gatti, Director of IELTech, and by me, called Are Heritage Speakers of Spanish Significantly Better at Speaking than at Writing? Results of an experiment on writing and speaking proficiencies, actual and perceived. This study was motivated by the assumption that heritage language learners speak better than they write. This assumption has been reinforced by heritage speakers themselves and by research. For example, it has been established by Carrera and Kagan 2011, along with Jensen and Yosa 2007. In addition, heritage speakers' context of acquisition, language use, and educational experiences supports this assumption in that heritage speakers typically learn the language at home, use it mostly in informal contexts with family and friends, and have limited or no academic experience in the heritage language. However, no research to date has put those perceptions and actual proficiency ratings side by side in order to find out the following. Do heritage language learners actually tend to receive higher ratings in speaking when proficiency measures are used? And if so, how large is the proficiency distance between their modalities? Finally, to what extent are heritage language learners accurate in identifying their own better modality? In order to investigate these three questions, we recruited 35 Spanish heritage language learners enrolled in a course for heritage learners at public universities in New York City. We used two official ACTFL assessments in order to determine proficiency ratings: the oral proficiency interview, that's OPI, and the writing proficiency test, or WPT. We also used a 37-item biographical questionnaire in order to elicit demographic backgrounds, a language acquisition profile, educational experience, and language practices. Finally, we implemented a self-assessment instrument of speaking and writing abilities in the form of a Likert scale. Next, the subjects' writing proficiency ratings were compared to their speaking proficiency ratings. And finally, these actual speaking and writing ratings were compared to their self-ratings in order to see how accurately they could self-assess. This table shows the two average proficiency results, and it suggests two things. First, that the range of speaking abilities was larger than the range of writing abilities. But more importantly, that the average speaking proficiency was higher than the average writing proficiency. The top row of the table shows that, on average, the writing proficiencies, and that's the WPT row, ranged from intermediate high to advanced mid. The lower row of the table shows that the speaking proficiencies, and that's the OPI row, ranged from intermediate mid all the way up to advanced high. In order to do calculations, the 10 ACTFL ratings were assigned a numeric value from 1 to 10. This is shown, for example, in the top row, where intermediate high is assigned a 6 and advanced mid is assigned an 8. Using those numeric values, we calculated averages, which are shown on the right. The top row shows that the writing proficiency average was 6.91, which is just under advanced low. And the bottom row shows that the average oral rating was higher, 7.63, which is between advanced low and advanced mid. The difference between the two averages is 0.72, which is less than 1 full point on the ACTFL scale. A dependent samples t-test was performed on this difference, and it was extremely significant, as is shown by this p-value. This means that the average OPI rating was statistically significantly higher than the average WPT rating. In addition, Cohen's effect size value, 0.77, was medium to large, suggesting a meaningful, practical significance to this result. In summary, despite this interesting and also expected result, it is important to note that subjects technically were better at speaking, but not by a large difference. So let's look closer at this finding that these subjects technically were better at speaking, but not by a very large amount. You can see in the first column that 63% of the subjects, which is 22 out of the 35 subjects total, had a higher speaking proficiency. Somewhat unexpectedly, 1/4, which is 26%, or 9 subjects, were actually balanced across abilities. And surprisingly, 11%, or 4 subjects, had higher writing proficiency, not typically expected of heritage learners. In summary, again, we have the expected result, but 63% is perhaps a smaller majority than might be anticipated. Another caveat lies in the consideration of the gap between abilities in terms of language functions. Many subjects who were better at writing or speaking were actually able to perform the same kinds of functions in both modalities. In other words, it was rather that they had better quality and quantity in one modality over the other. For instance, let's take these 8 subjects who received a rating of advanced mid in speaking and advanced low in writing. These 8 subjects were able to perform the functions of advanced in both modalities. In other words, they were able to narrate and describe in all time frames. The difference is in the quality of the performance, and that's what led to a rating of sublevel mid in the speaking versus low in the writing. Next, how accurate were the subjects in their self-assessment? More than half of the subjects, 56%, were inaccurate at evaluating whether they were better at speaking or writing. So we see that this group of heritage learners was not the best at knowing which of their abilities was better in Spanish. But an interesting tendency was found. The higher they evaluated themselves at speaking, the more accurate they tended to be at identifying their own better modality. You can see in the first row of this table that the subjects who evaluated themselves a 2 out of 5 in Spanish speaking, meaning that they felt their Spanish speaking needed work, none accurately assessed their stronger ability. But 17% of those who believed their speaking to be a 3 out of 5, a bit better, were accurate. And in the 4 and 5 out of 5, 50% and 63% of the subjects, respectively, assessed their ability balance correctly. This pattern result was not statistically significant according to a Fisher's exact test. But the effect size for this finding, Kramer's V, was moderate, 0.37, a medium association that suggests that this result would be a really good one to investigate with larger groups of subjects. Finally, this is not unlike existing findings by Swender et al. 2014, who found that heritage speakers who self-assessed their oral proficiency at advanced were the most accurate in their assessment overall. This paper tentatively concludes that 1. Heritage language learners do indeed tend to be better at speaking than at writing, but not by a large amount. And 2. Like existing work on bilinguals, this population of heritage language learners are not highly accurate at evaluating the relationship between their proficiency domains. Based on these findings, the authors recommend the following to heritage language learner instructors. First, with the understanding that the average heritage learner is a stronger speaker, construct activities that use speaking tasks as a scaffold for writing tasks. Number two, given that the distance between modalities is not as large as learners might think, use information on writing abilities to build up learners' confidence. And number three, avoid relying on learners' self assessment of abilities in lieu of placement or other diagnostic instruments. Some limitations include the following: more subjects would yield stronger results. Heritage language learners with a proficiency below intermediate mid in one or both modalities might present a different profile than the subjects in this study. In addition, heritage learners of other languages might present a different profile in terms of their stronger proficiency, especially speakers of heritage languages with different alphabets. For future work, one idea is to compare subjects' English oral and writing proficiencies to their Spanish proficiencies, something that could potentially help explain and orient their Spanish actable ratings. We've really enjoyed presenting these findings to you. For more details about the study, visit the full 2020 article, published in the 53rd volume of the Foreign Language Annals. Thank you.